Hi, this is Balaji, and you are watching the first episode of Coherent Coder. I hope you have watched my intro video. If you have not, then please go and watch it as it will give you an idea of what my channel is about and what you are going to get out of it. So, let's roll that intro. So, you guys might be wondering from where to start, right? It's a common problem that every one of us have. So in this case, for non-coders, that means for people who have never coded before, you must first improve your logical thinking skills by learning aptitude. Yes, the plain old aptitude, which you might consider boring, but it will help you a lot. Aptitude will help you to tune your brain to think more logically. Remember this always, that logical thinking will help you in your coding job or uh, even if you are just doing some practice problems to improve your coding skills, logical thinking is the brain of it all. So even if you're planning to get a job as a software engineer, most companies require freshers to take aptitude exam as the first round of interview. For others, that means for people who have a knowledge of coding and who have done coding before, you guys need to practice coding by solving problems. And I do not mean the normal simple problems, but you need to go to websites like HackerRank and HackerEarth. There you will get some advanced problems that you can solve, and this will help you a lot. Remember that there is no substitute for regular practice. So let's move on. So, why do I want to code? Right? This is a simple question, but this is the most important question that you have to ask yourself. Because coding won't always be fun. You might be able to learn the basics of coding in a month, but it takes more than that to get a grip on it. You have to be willing to put some effort into it. If you're planning to earn money out of it, or you want to do some creative stuff, for all these things, you will have to put effort and you will have to go through some boring stuff, right? Coding has its entertaining moments, and there will be moments that you will be wowed, right? You will see a lot of things that you can do with coding which will be very entertaining for you, but there will be moments where it will be dull. You will have to do plain old hard work and stuff like that. So just remember that and make sure that you stick till the end so that you can learn how to code properly. Moving on. Now let's look at types of programming languages. In general, we have five types of programming languages: procedural, functional, object-oriented, scripting, and logic. So let's look at what procedural programming languages are. A procedural programming language follows a sequence of statements or commands in order to achieve a desired output. So what does that mean, right? Let's assume that you want to multiply two numbers. What will you do? You will first decide what those two numbers are. You will multiply them. You will get an output and you will tell that output to someone. These are sequence of statements. And you can write these statements in the procedural programming languages and they will get executed one by one and they will produce an output. Next, we have functional programming languages. These are programming languages which are not concerned with execution of statements in a particular order and are rather focused on output of mathematical functions. So you basically give an input to mathematical functions and they give output based on the input. These are programming languages which are not very widely used. Next, we have object-oriented programming languages. These are the type of languages that treat a program as a group of objects. So these are the programming languages which are modeled after real world. So if you see in real world, everything that you touch is an object. For example, your phone is an object, your bottle is an object, your watch is an object, and so on. So in a similar way, everything is considered as an object in object-oriented programming languages. Next, we have scripting programming languages. These are programming languages which are used for automation and managing dynamic web content or to support other processes in larger applications. Okay, so for example, you might have read about Python or JavaScript somewhere, right? So JavaScript is one of the most popular languages and it is used everywhere for making dynamic web content. Next, we have logic programming languages. These are the most different programming languages that you will ever see. That is because in this programming language, you do not have statements at all, and instead of statements, they have rules. So what does that mean? That means that you can write a set of rules and then based on your input, it will validate what rules should be followed and what rules should not be followed. And based on that, it will provide an output. So for example, let's say that uh, people of 18 and above, only they are eligible for voter card, right? So if you try to give an age of 10, then basically it will have a rule which says that age should be greater than 18, only then issue voter ID. So if your age is not greater than 18, then it will not issue an voter ID. So in that way, you can write multiple rules which will get evaluated based on the input and you will get a particular output for that. So this is a simple example, but it gets a lot more complicated with logics. Out of these, we are only concerned about two types, that is procedural and object oriented. These are the two types that are most important for us. So we will be learning one language each from procedural and object oriented programming languages. So let's move on. Now that we know which kind of programming languages we want to learn, now let's look at what programming languages we are actually going to learn. So even out of these two types, right, we have a lot of programming languages. For example, we have C, we have C++, we have Java, we have Swift, we have C Sharp, right? So we have all these programming languages. So you might be wondering what programming language to learn from all of these. So we are going to be focusing on two, as I said. So the first one that we are going to look at is C programming language. C programming language is a procedural language which was created by Dennis Ritchie at Bell Laboratories in 1972. Before C language, we used to have assembly language, which was very difficult to code in. And it was considered as a low level language and it wasn't very user friendly in any way. So now that we have learned about C language, let's move on and check what language we are going to learn after this. The next language that we are going to be looking at is C Sharp. C Sharp is an object-oriented programming language which is developed by Microsoft and it runs on .NET Framework. You do not have to worry about what .NET Framework is right now. We will discuss that when C Sharp comes into picture. Right now, you should just know that we are going to learn this after C. So C Sharp is basically an extension of C, but it incorporates a lot of things which are very useful for you. But remember that you should always start with C language because C language has a very similar constructs and similar structure to all the modern programming languages. So if you learn C, you can learn all the other programming languages much more easier. So let's move on. Now let's look at the softwares that are required for writing C language code. So in general, we have a lot of softwares with which you can write C language code, but I will be discussing only two of them because I found that those two are the easiest ways to write code. Okay. First is Dev C++. Dev C++ is a software that you can download and install on your computer. Its user interface is not that great, but it is easy to use. Now let's look at how you can download and install it. To be able to download Dev C++, you have to go to Google and search for dev C++. Then click on enter. So now you will get this link to SourceForge. Click on this and it will redirect you to this website. Now click on the download button here and this will download the setup for you. So now that the setup is downloaded, open it. After you open it, it will unzip the setup and then you should be able to see the screen. You can select whatever language you like, but I would ask you to stick with English. Now click on OK and then click on I agree, click on next and click on install. If you want to change the location where dev C++ is getting installed, you can click on browse and change it, but for my purpose I just want it here, so I'm just going to click on install. Now this is going to take some time to extract all the files for it, so we are just going to wait for it to be done and then we will open dev C++ and I will just show you around it. Now you can just click on finish with this checked. So if this is checked, it will open dev C++ as soon as you click on finish. So now you see it opened up and it's selected as English original. You can leave it as it is, or if you want to select some other language, you can go ahead and do it. Now here you can select whatever color you want. If you want to have this color, you can select this color. If you want to have this one, you can select this one. But this will only change the color of the editor, not the color of the entire application. So you will soon understand what I mean by it when we click on next. Now you can see this message saying dev C++ has been configured successfully, and you can change this setting later on also. Now you can just go ahead and click on OK and it will open this. So you can see that the color that we chose is nowhere here because that's the color of the editor and the editor does not mean the entire application. So this is it. So you can explore it till we delve into C programming. The second way of writing C language code is by using an online C compiler. So online C compiler are basically websites where you can write C language code and run them. You can just go and Google online C compiler and you will see a lot of websites which provide this service. And most of them have free services. So basically you can write this code for free without paying anything. But as a coder, I always believe that you should know how to code locally because that is how you will be using in a professional environment. So I will be using only dev C++ in the upcoming videos. Now that we know what software we are going to use, let's move on to the thing that you are actually here for. If you are watching this, then I congratulate you as you survived the boring part and you're finally here. So let's look at the basics of coding in C language. I hope you all have installed Dev C++. If not, if you want to follow it by using some online C compiler, you can do that too. So if you are using Dev C++, then you will see the screen when you first open the application because you have not done anything with it. So now what you have to do is go to File, click on New, and then go to Project. And here select Console and select Hello World. Now here you will see that it is selected as C++ project. We don't want that. So select C project now. And you can give a name to your project. I am just going to give hello world example. Now I'm going to click on OK, and I'm just going to say save. Okay, so now you can see the color that we selected here. So this is the blue color that we selected, but this doesn't look pretty good, so we are going to change it. So go to editor options, go to color, and here you can select any theme that you want. Okay, so the color wasn't good, so we reverted this back to the original one. This is the Classic Plus theme. If you want to change themes and if you're into that, you can do that. But for our purpose, we do not need to do that. So you can see that when we when we created the Hello World example, it created an Hello World program for us, right? So this is basically the starting point for any coder. Every coder, whenever they are trying to learn a new language, they do a Hello World example. That's just how it is. Okay, so let's look at all the different things that are here. So for our purposes to simplify things, let's ignore this. We do not need this right now. We can change this to void, and we can even remove this. Okay, now it's simple, right? So we just have these lines of code. So let's try to understand what these lines mean. First, let's start from here. stdio.h is a header file. So you can understand that it's a normal file with a .h extension. Just like we have .exe extension, .mp4 extension, in a similar way, this is a .h extension. Okay, this is a physical file that exists. So you can go and even find this file and you can check the code that's inside it. So what is this file? What does it do? So this file has some set of code which we are going to use to do some things. So the best way to understand this is with an example that I'm going to give you now. So for example, let's assume that your car broke down on the highway. So who would you call? You would obviously call a mechanic, right? He would come and fix your car. In the similar way, if there is a water leakage problem in your house, who would you call? You would call a plumber, right? He would come and fix it. So if you look at this example, you are calling people who know some specific things to help you. In a similar way, stdio.h has some functionality which we require. So stdio.h will help us when we call it. And how do we call it? We use this hash include command. So this hash include command is called preprocessor directive because what it does is it this line of code will first get executed before anything else happens. So even before the compiler starts to compile this. So you will understand what a compiler is later on. C is a language which uses compiler, and then there are languages which use interpreter. So there are some differences which we will get into later on, but not right now. So for our purposes, we need some help. We need help to do something. And for that reason, we call stdio.h. We include stdio.h. So what including means is that you call it to you. For example, you can call an engineer to your house, but what you ask him to do is dependent on you. For example, you can say that your car is not starting, right? That might be one problem. Second problem might be your AC is not working. So that is the second problem. So you are not going to just be like saying all things at once, right? You will put one problem at a time. In a similar way, we are including stdio.h, but we are not going to use everything that it knows. For example, if you call a mechanic, you're not going to be using his entire skill set, right? You're not going to ask him to disassemble your vehicle totally and start to build it. It's a waste of time and it's no use for you. In a similar way, stdio.h contains a lot of functions. So what are functions? Functions are reusable blocks of code. So what do I mean by reusable blocks of code? So basically it is a set of lines of code which are written so that you can call it and use it for yourself. So you will understand what functions is and all later on, but this is just the basics of it. Now, next thing is void main. So remember that in C language, main function is always the entry point for code. So what that means? So I told you about compiler, right? So when a compiler tries to execute a particular file, what it would do is it would go and it would first look for this main method. If a particular C language does not have any main method at all, then it will obviously throw an error. It cannot execute anything without main method. So main method, you can think of it as an entrance gate. Without an entrance gate, you cannot get into building, right? Your building needs to have an entry point, and this main method does the same thing. So this is an entry point. After this, what you do is dependent on you, but this is mandatory. Next thing is printf and hello world. So print basically prints something on your screen. So you might be confused with the print word. It's not the same as the printer. Printer prints a hard copy of it, right? But this print prints a soft copy of whatever is given to it. For example, here we have given it hello world, right? So this hello world will be printed when we try to execute it. So let's try and execute. So before we execute, we have to compile. So we go to execute and click compile. Now it will ask you to save the file. You can name the file anything and then click on save. Now you can see that there are no errors and there are no warnings. That means you are fine and you're good to go. Now you can go to execute and click run. So now you see that it opened a console and then it printed hello world, right? So basically what it did is it printed whatever was given to it. I congratulate you because you are really great to be able to learn something new here, right? Learning new is not always easy and it takes some effort to be put in. I hope you guys have enjoyed the video and have been able to understand the basics of coding in C. If you guys have any doubts about what I discussed, then please put a comment in the video. If you like the video, then please like and subscribe to the channel, and that will help others discover this content and they will also be able to learn something new. So, thank you and happy coding.